Each and every week, so many metal albums get released, it's impossible to get to them all. And this past weekend was certainly no different than any other week, where there were a lot of albums that I wanted to talk about, but just didn't get the opportunity. However, I do have some information on 5 bands who released albums over the course of the past couple of days that you should definitely check out. And considering the popularity of the 5 Reasons series, which I thank you very much for that, even though I think I need a disclaimer at the beginning of most of those videos, I figured that we would do something different with the number 5 today. So here are 5 albums that were released just a couple of days ago on the last Friday of April that you should definitely check out, that I sadly didn't get a full review of. So let's get started. Let's talk about number 5. Number 5 is Escape by the band Germ. Now, whenever you think of the word Germ, you might think of the Germs, which is not this band. Germ is actually an Australian shoegaze, post-metal, black metal, whatever you want to call it, project that has been making some waves for the past couple of years. Their first live show that they performed, they were able to perform in support of the legendary Enslaved, so that's a pretty good first step into the live foray. Escape is an interesting album, considering there's electronic mix that sort of swirls throughout this. We have longer songs that are 8 to 9 minutes in length. Basically think about a very rough around the edges outset, and think about a little bit more of that raw black metal power that sometimes infuses itself within. The electronics age is more of just the synthesizers that you hear that sort of swirl around to give it an interesting and crisp effect. There's definitely a lot on this album to offer to a listener, considering this one-man group is able to create some very interesting atmospheres overall with what he's able to do. Take a look at songs such as I'll Give Myself to the Wind, either that or The Old Dead Tree. The Old Dead Tree, by the way, was the name of a band as well. I honestly can't remember if they're still active, but they were pretty good. But this track is 9 minutes of bliss that actually turns into chaos. It's definitely one to check out. So if you're a fan of atmospheric black metal, if you're a fan of post-metal, of shoegazing, if you're a fan really just of something that's a bit unique, I would check this one out. At number 4, we have Discharge with End of Days. This is a legendary group whose lineage spans all the way back to the early 1980s, and they're considered actually to be a tantamount influence to groups such as Metallica, some of the earliest roots of thrash metal, and this can even be seen on Garage Incorporated, where Metallica covers one of their songs, Free Speech for the Dumb. Now, End of Days is the first album in 8 years by this group that blends hardcore punk with a little bit of thrash, a little bit of that early metal philosophy. Really, all that this is about is speed, speed, speed. It's rough, it's rugged, it's not meant to be pretty, and believe me, this album certainly isn't, but that's actually the charm of it. That's what makes this album so great. 15 tracks, only 33 minutes in length. Consider it listening to an ancient tome of perhaps a band such as a Napalm Death or just an old school hardcore punk album, only with 2016 appeal. And believe me, this is one that has that appeal. Now, unlike a lot of traditional punk albums that may throw lyricism at you at a rampant pace, this is instead a band that is unafraid to just sort of let the music, the destructive nature of its music, sort of really speak for itself. Look at songs such as New World Order, which is the opening cut on this disc, that just absolutely open the doors, the floodgates to the fury that is Discharge, and then go with songs such as Hate Bomb, either that or Infected, which whenever I think of Infected, I immediately think of Bad Religion for some stupid reason. But at the same time, Discharge ain't no Bad Religion. This is hard, this is heavy, this is rambunctious, this is violent, this is what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to know a little bit about the history of this music that we love, if you want to hear one of the influences for a band such as Metallica here in 2016, what they have to offer a modern age, check this one out. Check out End of Days by Discharge in at number 4. Let's keep the violence going with number 3. We have Abnormality and Mechanisms of Omniscience. Man, oh man, you want to talk about a rising star in the death metal community from right here in the United States. A female-fronted death metal rising star from right here in the United States. Look no further than Abnormality. This is a band that is quickly becoming a lot of people's favorites within this construct. Really, right from the get-go of this album with their song Swarm, that's exactly what they do to a listener's ears. They swarm it with their absolute power. This is something where the riffs are clean, but at the same time, the dirt, the grime, the grit, the absolute maelstrom that comes is based off of the quickness, it's based off of the ferocity, it's based off of how technically excellent this band is able to really represent themselves. Not to mention those deep growls that you hear from their singer, those deep growls from their female fronted lead singer. Wow, we're talking about Angela Gossau got herself one hell of a protege, and one that may actually be able to supersede her in excellence. The dynamicy here is absolutely ridiculous, and if you want to see this in action, look no further to the 6-minute long epic that this album is able to boast, entitled Vigilant Ignorance. Man, this is a song that really encapsulates what this band is all about, and really showcases why this is an album in the mechanisms of Omniscience that absolutely begs to be scoped out by any death metal aficionado. But then again, if you're an aficionado, chances are you already know who this band is, and already know that this is a pleasurable experience. One that you should definitely really, tell all your friends about, considering this group right here, they could be a rising star. They could be the future of US death metal. Check it out. Okay, after all that, let's dial things back a little bit with number 2, which is Long Distance Calling with their album Trips. Now, this is a post-rock group that has been making some waves over the course of the latter portion of the 2000s and now the first part of the 2010s. Their popularity seems to sway based around their ability to create lush atmosphere, and they have certainly gotten some terrific guest musicians to help them out in the vocal department, including members of Anathema, either that or John Bush. Now, they have a vocalist here in 2016 making his album debut with the album Trips, and it's certainly causing a little bit of debate among some of the fan base. It's one where he sounds a little bit more tailored toward perhaps one of those groups that we don't often talk about here in the coverkillernation. Something that some folks have compared to a little bit of post-hardcore. I really don't see this very much on this. This song Lines sort of exhibits this a little bit better. In fact, the whole entirety of this track feels like it's an homage almost to this brand or this style of music, but some of the other swirling passages that Trips is able to deliver more than make up for it, considering this band is very solid in its post-rock bliss. They're not all classics here that are released each and every week, but if you're very curious about this band, if you're very curious about a new post-rock group that you may find to be enjoyable, check out Long Distance Calling, check out Trips. This may be something that's right up your alley, or at least a brand new band that you can brag to your friends about that you explored today. Either way, I think that this is an album that may be setting up something more for this group, that perhaps if they're able to retain this lineup, that the next album will have a lot of charm and a lot more to offer, but we'll only have to wait and see. That's going to have to bring us to number 1. Let's find out who that is. Ooh, boy, you want to talk about the granddaddy of this group. We have Schammasch with Triangle. Why is it the granddaddy? It's the longest disc that you have out of this this fearsome pentagram of heavy metal that have been released over this past weekend. A tri-album, a triple album, the trinity of releases, really one for each side that the triangle represents. And this group, Schammasch, my gosh, we have black metal, we have post metal, we have avant-garde. There's a little bit of everything that is involved in this cosmic mix, and it's certainly one that is dirty and grimy, but somehow, some way, is able to unify together to produce at times this strange, very eerie beauty that makes this album truly a sight to behold. Now, you might think 3 albums at really about 90 or 100 minutes, that's only about 33 minutes per disc, and that's about correct, that's about accurate. This is something where they don't try to overindulge or do anything like that. They certainly want to keep each section or each idea within this disc or within this overall product kind of put together. Check out songs such as Consensus, which is an 8.5 minute long sprawling track that showcases the dirt and the grime, the black metal and the avant-garde that this band is able to reproduce, while also somehow, some way, giving them a little bit of charm, giving them a little soft edge. Look at songs such as Above the Stars of God, which is really just by title exploring some of the higher natures, some of the larger cosmic traits of this universe. And also check out songs like off of the first disc, In Dialogue with Death, either that or the Empyrean right there from the very last cut on this disc, and you're going to get just the full gamut, not only of emotion, but the full gamut of what Schammasch is able to really accomplish as a band. Man, this album is one that so many people, I feel, are going to miss. Perhaps because the name doesn't seem all of that familiar. The name is a bit strange. It doesn't roll right off the tongue. You kind of have to ask around to see what's acceptable as to how to, really state them. But it's a group that certainly demands a little bit of exploration, considering this interesting mix, this unique flavor that Schammasch is able to bring to the table with Triangle and their previous releases, is one that certainly will be explored by those more daring travelers of the heavy metal universe for years to come. Be one of those daring travelers. Give this album a shot. It is a lengthy one, but it's one that is well worth your attention and well worth your investigation. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are 5 albums that were released last weekend that I unfortunately had no chance to get to, but certainly wanted to at least explore and pass them along to you guys. Now, this is something that I'm definitely not going to be able to do every week, but it is something that whenever we have larger days like this past weekend, I'll try to do something like this. That way we cover a couple more of the albums that perhaps you hoped that I would get to, but unfortunately my schedule didn't allow. I'm coverkillernation, and I hope you guys check out these albums if you haven't already. If you have, let me know in the comments below which one of these is your favorite, or which one you really felt was the standout among these 5. And was there others that were missed, that were released this past weekend? Let me know, and maybe you can pass that along to more of the fan base. Let's just spread metal in this. Once again, I'm CKN, and I'm peacing out. Later on.